G'day everyone, and thanks for taking part in the Queensland Government's Invested in Queensland Health Investor Forum. As Queensland Treasurer and Minister for Trade and Investment, it gives me great pleasure to host and open this, the second event in our Investor Forum series. This forum is being held in partnership with the Department of State Development, Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning, and the Department of Health, and the Department of Environment and Science. We've got a range of engaging presentations lined up for you, and important messages from my Cabinet colleagues, including the Deputy Premier, Stephen Miles, the Minister for Health, Yvette Darth, and the Minister for Science, Megan Scanlon. I also want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the Austrade representatives who join us online today. Government works best when all levels of government work together, so I thank Austrade for their ongoing partnership with Queensland, particularly with Trade and Investment Queensland. This Investor Forum comes after an almost 2-year period that's been unlike any other. Never before have health-related issues played such a prominent role in decision-making by governments, businesses and individuals. Every single one of us has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the necessary health response that's come from it. Because of this, COVID has also created some of the biggest economic challenges we've faced in our lifetimes. But the good news, though, is that Queensland's economy has rebounded strongly. On all major economic indicators, Queensland comes out on top, whether it's economic growth, retail spending, household lending, dwelling investment, business investment, interstate migration, and labour force participation. Queensland has either grown faster than the national average, or we are the best performing state in our own right. And most importantly, we've led the nation on jobs. There are now 90,000 more Queenslanders in work than there were before COVID-19 arrived last year. All of this means Queensland is in the box seat to attract innovators, ideas and investment to fuel the ongoing growth of our state's economy. My vision for Queensland is pro-growth and pro-business. We're a state where big ideas can flourish in sectors like health. Healthcare and social assistance accounts for almost 9% of the Queensland economy. It generated nearly $30 billion in economic activity in the last financial year. It's also Queensland's largest employer, with 375,000 workers. Last financial year, 1 in every 7 Queenslanders who had a job in healthcare. Over the past 20 years, Queensland's healthcare industry has grown by an average of 6% every year, almost twice the speed of the broader Queensland economy. As the health sector expands and challenges from the pandemic persist, investment has never been more critical. That's why we're continuing to work in partnership with established and emerging health and biomedical firms. Through Queensland Government investment programs, we've successfully increased local production capacity to shore up our supply of essential health goods. For example, our investment support and facilitation has resulted in global medtech leader Stryker planning a research and development facility in Queensland, award-winning Logan manufacturer Imaging Solutions expanding its medical and personal protective equipment operations locally, and Aussie innovators Wear Optimo establishing a Queensland facility to produce their world-leading, life-saving wearable medical technology. On many key measures, Queensland's health system ranks among the best in the world. However, like jurisdictions across the globe, we're faced with significant challenges such as an ageing population and increasing chronic disease. Investment in better clinical interventions and new technologies offer the prospect of improved health outcomes for all. And Queensland is well positioned to lead the world in providing health products, services and know-how, but this will depend on us having the right mix of investment and industry development programs. To continue giving the private sector certainty to invest in Queensland's future, our government will keep investing in the economy and in our future. This includes through our $520 million Invested in Queensland program designed to support large-scale investment projects in our state. We're eager and ready to back business proposals that align with our priorities and demonstrate strong growth potential, particularly around employment. Investors will find compelling opportunities in Queensland, particularly in precision medicine, biopharmaceuticals, vaccine and medical device manufacturing, drug development and translation of biomedical discoveries. And some of the world's biggest markets, including the US, the United Kingdom, Japan and ASEAN member states, are all showing investment interest in Queensland. This is being driven by Queensland's health innovation credentials and our active approach towards investment through both our commercial and investment team in Treasury and Trade and Investment Queensland. Today's forum features a high calibre lineup of industry and investment experts, matched only by the impressive list of attendees we've got online right now. Can I thank you all for being part of this event and for looking to invest in Queensland, the place to be and the best place to do business.
Thank you, Treasurer, for providing us with a great context for our session today. We will now hear from the Deputy Premier and Minister for State Development, Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning, and Minister assisting the Premier on Olympics Infrastructure, the Honourable Stephen Miles MP. The Deputy Premier will share with you why Queensland is the only investment destination and the pathways that the Queensland Government can provide for assistance.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be able to share a few words with you today. Queensland is the best place to invest, the best place to do business, and the best place to live. In the biomedical sector in particular, Queensland is excelling, with $1.85 billion in gross value added to the Queensland economy in 2020. If you're considering investing in Queensland, we offer a number of pathways for assistance, starting with our front door for industry, the Queensland Jobs Fund. The $3.34 billion Jobs Fund brings together the Queensland Government's flagship industry programs to boost the state's industry footprint, create jobs and strengthen Queensland's economy. As part of the fund, the new Industry Partnership Program will invest $350 million over 4 years to continue to grow and create jobs across several priority industry sectors, including biomedical. The first project announced in June this year under the program is an investment towards a new Translational Manufacturing Institute at the existing Translational Research Institute, known as TRI. The Palaszczuk Government will provide up to $20 million to expand the existing TRI to include a new state-of-the-art Translational Manufacturing Institute called TMI at TRI. This institute will address a critical gap in the commercialisation of a wide range of medical products in Australia. Companies will be able to translate their discoveries into a clinical product ready for manufacture. Just look at James Cook University in Northern Queensland. The team there is passionate about innovation and ensuring great ideas and inventions get to market. JCU's Multidisciplinary Health and Tropical Research Institute is working to undertake translational research relevant not only to people living in Northern Australia, but also neighbouring tropical nations. Research coming out of regional Queensland will make a real difference to global health challenges. Another way we help companies looking to invest here is by leveraging government infrastructure and land, like we've done for Queensland biotech company Vaxis. We've partnered with Vaxis to establish a manufacturing facility right here in Brisbane to produce a revolutionary vaccine delivery system. Vaxis's needle-free vaccine technology will open up the potential for mass vaccination on a global scale. Where there's a will to invest and a benefit for our state, there's a way we can help. Our dedicated biomedical industry development team is ready to work with you. They play an important role connecting industry with government and can get the ball rolling on important conversations around facilitation and fiscal or financial incentives. To me, it's clear, Queensland is the best place to invest, and many multinational companies now agree. I recently had the pleasure of announcing global medical technology group Stryker establishing its first Australian research and development facility in Queensland at the Hurston Health Precinct. To have a globally recognised Fortune 500 company invest here shows that Queensland is firmly on the world map as an investment destination. Our success in managing and recovering from the pandemic has allowed us to continue growing and strengthening our local supply chains. From manufacturing PPE to world-leading research into infectious diseases and vaccines, we are investor ready. After this forum, I encourage you to reach out to us and find out why Queensland is the next logical step in your business trajectory. We'll continue to champion our biomedical sector and encourage growth across the industry. And if you make the move to invest in Queensland, we'll champion your business too.
Thank you, Deputy Premier, in sharing why Queensland. We will now have a couple of presentations, starting with a case study of an investor by Mr. James Leong, Chairman and Founding Partner of Pagoda Capital. Mr. Leong has over 25 years of private equity investment experience. Before founding Pagoda, he was a senior executive at CIC, China's sovereign wealth fund, and is also a senior advisor to QIC. Pagoda Capital is a private equity fund focusing on innovative technology, health science, and advanced manufacturing. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Treasurer and Deputy Premier. My name is James Leong. I came to Australia in 1987 as a year 12 student. Ever since then, I've studied and worked in this beautiful country. When I worked for QIC a few years ago, I fell in love with the fantastic weather in Brisbane and wish I could spend more time here. I'm the founding partner of Pagoda Capital, a private equity firm with an established global investment platform focused on China's growth in healthcare and technology. We have a presence in 5 regions and a seasoned and experienced team. We have combined our global resources to build up a integrated solution for innovative biotech and advanced medical technology, leveraging strong operational expertise and our strategic partnership with a number of key industry players to invest in and help companies to enhance their value by capturing opportunities in the China market. An example of how our platform has added value significantly to the Australian-based healthcare companies was our investment into Brisbane-based Icon Group. As you may be aware that we have just announced the exit of Icon a few days ago. Icon is one of the largest private cancer care providers in Asia Pacific. They are a market leader in oncology cancer care business. Icon provides comprehensive cancer treatment with a vertically integrated model of significant scale across compounding, pharmacy, chemo, and radiation oncology. In 2017, we together with QIC and Goldman Sachs PIA formed a consortium to acquire Icon Group's controlling stake. With our 4 years investment, as well as guidance and operational expertise, we have helped Icon successfully expand their clinics into key markets in Asia, including 8 centers in Singapore, with 9 under construction, 3 in Hong Kong, and then importantly, 5 highly successful clinics in China by partnering with the 2 largest and the most respected private hospital groups in the country. I can proudly say that Icon today is one of the best foreign cancer care providers in China. With other foreign players are trying, but without much success. I've summarized some of the key things that we have done in the past. Establishing 100% local China team, we made the decision-making process very swift and fast. Set up the local data center from the beginning, well ahead of the local government's compulsory requirement. And we introduced, we brought the best Australians' best practice of cancer care to China via on-the-job training, daily operation, and work very closely with the local KOL, top public hospitals on academic research and clinical trials. We are working on the additional patient flow in the market, not to compete with the existing local player. And that's one of the key, that's why we're so successful. So we help them to provide better services to their patients by offering our latest technology and upgrade services. 4 million new cancer patients a day, the market is big enough. When we invest, Icon was a single country-based healthcare provider. Now it's a truly international player. I'd like to say a few words about our strategic partnership as another example how we can work with the industry guys. The key, one of the key strategic partnership Pagoda Capital has formed was with Foxconn Group, known as the maker of iPhones. one of the world's leading advanced technology manufacturer and solution providers. The objective of our partnership is to identify emerging companies with global innovations and advanced technology solutions who have exceptional potential. We will then not just invest capital into these companies, but more importantly, bring them to the Foxconn platform to commercialize their products for the global market by utilizing Foxconn's smart manufacturing capabilities and ecosystem. We have been working with a number of innovative bio and medical technology companies in Europe, US, and Asia Pacific, and we have significantly enhanced their value. The icon example can be seen by other Australian Queensland-based companies as a case study of how the right partnership and the right strategy can lead to amazing results with realized objective in one of the world's largest healthcare markets, such as China. The question is how. On the R&D side, Australia has a great research capability, but there is a significant lacking of the commercialization. We believe Australian company and Queensland companies should form alliance partnerships with the parties in the region to quickly convert technology into products to enter into market. You need to be local and find a partner that can understand you, listen to you, and their skill set is complementary to you. Sounds like a good marriage. Capital is another key that helps a company to grow fast. Last but not least, be innovative and be the first one to bring the product to the market. Thank you.
Thank you, James, for your insightful presentation. Next, we have Mr. David Mitchell, Executive Director of TropicQ, Townsville Tropical Intelligence and Health Precinct. TropicQ is one of Queensland's health and medical precincts. As Executive Director, David leads a range of work, including commercial and institutional engagement across domestic and international markets. Thanks, David.
TropicQ is a unique partnership that will establish a tropical intelligence and health and knowledge precinct in Townsville. Backed by the Townsville City Council and endorsed by the Queensland Government, TropicQ is a key deliverable of the federal government's Townsville City deal. Leveraging Townsville's location in one of the most biodiverse regions on the planet, TropicQ will have a unique position as a world-class hub in marine science and tropical disease. This precinct aims to open a pipeline of investment for private and commercial enterprise into Townsville, with a focus on innovation in science, technology and research. TropicQ will make Townsville a destination of choice for researchers, scientists and clinicians who will leverage our living laboratory as they strive to overcome the challenges of the tropical world. Welcome to TropicQ.
So TropicQ is a tropical intelligence and health precinct that's situated in the heart of North Queensland, in the city of Townsville. The launch of TropicQ recognised the collaboration between Townsville City Council, James Cook University and Townsville University Hospital in their intent to utilise the co-location of a world-class university and a world-class teaching tertiary hospital to bring them together to do more in a precinct that has great opportunities in terms of its co-location with Defence as its neighbour, and also in terms of the great expanse of traditional industries and natural resources that exist within a living laboratory that is North Queensland. I think in terms of the key fundamentals from an economics perspective and from a health system perspective, Queensland has a well-established ecosystem of world-class facilities and services. We have internationally recognised research and innovation outcomes that come from our key institutions. And within those are highly trained and specialised clinicians and a broader, highly trained health workforce. TropicQ, with its co-location with Defence, the world-class university and a world-class tertiary teaching hospital, And again, with proximity to all the traditional industries across the north, agriculture, aquaculture, mining, the mineral basins, etc., there is great opportunity for international and national investors to co-locate in the north within a living laboratory. So it's very rare to get this confluence of organisations and the natural environment within a developed country on the doorstep to the rest of the world. There are more than 70 businesses that exist within our TropIQ ecosystem. So beyond the university and the hospital, we have involvement from the CSIRO, from Tropical Australia Academic Health Centre and the Australian Institute of Tropical Health and Medicine, and many other players. And collectively, the co-location and collection of all of those businesses provides a $3.5 billion input into the local economy each year. TropIQ's vision over the next 10 plus years is to expand that to be a $5 billion industry, and that will be beyond health. It will be in areas around defence and defence industry. It will be around aquaculture and agriculture. It'll be around the translation of traditional industries and the utilisation of their intellectual property, combined with emerging intelligence and technologies around artificial intelligence and others, advanced computing, to provide improved outcomes nationally and internationally, and commercialisation opportunities for entrepreneurs and innovators acting within that space.
Thank you. We now move to our panel discussion, which has been led by Professor Paul Young, who is Professor of Virology and Head of the School of Chemistry and Molecular Biosciences at the University of Queensland. Professor Young's research aims to understand the basis of virus disease, develop new and improved diagnostics, as well as vaccines and therapeutics for viral pathogens of both human and animal origin. Professor Young will moderate the panel session as well as introduce our panellists. We welcome questions from you during this panel's discussion. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment, you can click on the thought bubble icon on the bottom right corner of your screen. Welcome Professor Young and our panel for today.
Thank you, Therese, and welcome to everybody both here in person, some of these rare face-to-face meetings these days, and to everyone online. As you've heard, I'm Professor Paul Young, Head of the School of Chemistry and Molecular Bioscience, and in addition, I co-led, or am co-leading, the University of Queensland COVID-19 vaccine program. And the intent there is to progress past a few hurdles we've had along the way towards a booster vaccine, which hopefully we'll be taking into the clinic sometime next year. So on that journey, we as a classic research team have moved at pace into a commercial arena, and we've been exposed to some of the environment here in Queensland, particularly here in southeast Queensland, that I wasn't that aware of, and that is the strength and power of the infrastructure and the biomedical ecosystem that allowed us to progress the way we did. What we're going to do today is explore some of that through a discussion in a panel with, we're very fortunate to have a group of 5 panellists, most from companies and one from a major biomedical research institute in Queensland, to really address some of the issues around investment and progressing commercial products. We've got 45 minutes for this panel session, and as you just heard, it will run as a Q&A. The discussion is going to be around Queensland's strengths, investment opportunities, the journey that successful companies have made in attracting investment, and just why international investors have chosen these companies. And finally, we'll explore why Queensland is the place to invest, and you've heard that several times already. I remind you again that questions are very welcome from the audience, so if you could please place them in the chat stream. They will be moderated and sent through to me up here. So let's begin by asking each of our panel members to maybe briefly introduce themselves and say a little about their role in the Queensland health and biomedical sector. And I wonder if we can start down with you, Sammy, at the other end of the panel.
Yep, sure. I'm Sammy Nabulsi, Managing Director of Cook Medical, based here in Brisbane. We've been in Brisbane since '89. We are a developer and manufacturer of minimally invasive medical devices. We have two really main product families, the whole suite of IVF products and implantable stent grafts. We employ about 700 people here in Brisbane, and we have a national sales force, so we have about 100 field staff around the country. That's us.
Thanks, Sammy. Fabienne?
My name is Fabienne Mackay. I'm the Director and CEO of QIMR Berghofer Medical Research Institute, which has been in Queensland for more than 76 years. Our research is focused on cancer, infectious disease, mental health, and population health and genetics. But also the Institute has a very extensive program of commercialization of research outcomes. On a personal level, also I have a long history working for the pharmaceutical and biotech industry prior to coming to the academic world of biomedical research.
Thanks, Fabienne. Kim?
Hello, my name's Kim Baker. I'm the General Manager of Patheon Biologics, which is part of Thermo Fisher Scientific. Here in Brisbane, we run a commercial scale manufacturing plant of protein biotherapeutics. They could cover cancer therapies, rheumatoid arthritis, wet AMD, all the way through to COVID vaccines, and using mammalian cell manufacturing. We're just approaching next year our 10th anniversary from startup of the construction of the building, and really now employ more than 200 staff, of which the majority of those are STEM graduates. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Sean?
Hello all, Sean Parsons is my name. I'm founder and CEO of Loom. We make high-performance digital diagnostics for consumers and professionals. We focus on common infectious diseases, particularly viruses. We have products for influenza, tuberculosis, and of course COVID. Our most well-known product is the home COVID test, which is the first product to receive an emergency use authorization for at-home use in the US, and has kept us busy for the last couple of years.
Thanks, Sean. And we have Glenn Keys online. Is Glenn there?
Hi, thank you very much. My name's Glenn Keys. I'm the founder and executive chairman of Aspen Medical, and we're a complete healthcare solution provider. So the buildings, the equipment, the people, technology, pharmaceuticals, consumables, ambulance, aircraft, whatever is required to deliver a solution wherever we're needed in the world. We're 100% Australian owned and veteran owned. We have about 4,500 staff worldwide. Had a very long heritage working in Queensland. Our Pacific headquarters is based out of Brisbane. We do everything from supporting resource sector companies across the north of Queensland, Indigenous communities, providing outreach dialysis support into far north Queensland Indigenous communities, aeromedical evacuation support, and have done quite a lot in vaccinations, testing, respiratory clinics, and staff provision into a range of disability and aged care facilities across Queensland in the last couple of years. We've invested in PPE manufacturer, which we're happy to talk about later, and early next year we'll be opening our new regional headquarters in Brisbane that we've established over the last few months. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Glenn. And there are your panellists, and a wealth of expertise in this panel. Sean, maybe if we could begin with the questions with you. So your company, Loom, has been on quite an extraordinary journey over the last few years, particularly since the emergence of COVID-19. Could you tell us briefly about that journey of growth and about a novel diagnostic idea you had, taking that to a local business which attracted a key investor, and how you went about capturing their interest, and how that investment subsequently fueled a major international growth?
Sure thing, Paul. First of all, thank you to the state government for arranging this event. This is fantastic to be here with you today. I founded Loom in 2010 after my experience of the swine flu pandemic, where I was working in a busy emergency department here in Queensland, and felt that our ability to diagnose people early in the course of the illness was the critical pathway to enabling us to treat them and to isolate those people. I felt that a home test for influenza would be a good thing, and that if we could create that, we could make a real dent on the burden of disease. We set out in 2010 to find what we felt was the best technology for that purpose, and then to reduce that to practice and to make that possible for flu. Along the road, we've developed other uses for the same core technology, including in tuberculosis, where we have a big partnership with a global company named QIAGEN for the next generation of their very successful TB test. And we have also created other products for professional use. And we have created a digital platform for diagnosing at home common infectious diseases. When COVID came along, we turned our attention to making a home COVID test. We were well advanced in our discussions with the FDA from years of engagement, and so they knew our technology well. We proved that we could make a home COVID test, and the advantages of our technology stood out. The National Institutes of Health provided us with about a $40 million Australian support in approximately September 2020, and on the back of that we were the first at-home test authorised by the Food and Drug Administration. The test itself is a single-use test that you buy in a kit from a pharmacy in the US only at this stage. It connects to your phone. The app walks you through how to use the test step by step, and you take a swab from your nose, apply it to the test, and have a result in 15 minutes. The performance of the test is pretty good, about 95% sensitivity and 97% specificity in the trials we ran for the FDA. And on the back of the authorisation by the FDA, we received a contract from the US Department of Defence to the tune of a bit over 300 million Australian dollars to expand our manufacturing capability, but also to supply the Department of Defence with 8.5 million tests. That has been a whirlwind journey for a small, previously development company into a multinational manufacturing commercialisation business of high-performance diagnostics. It's been quite the ride as we've scaled up more than 20 times from a staffing perspective. Apologies to some of my fellow panellists whom, I think I do have some of your former staff with us. I do apologise. I'm sure our turn will come for it to go the other way, and we have done what we set out to do, which is to create a truly digital high-performance fluorescent immunoassay and to deliver that into the US. We are looking to continue to scale that to respond to the pandemic. We are preparing to bring our product here to Australia where we think it can be of use. That won't be until well into the first half of next year, given our commitments to the US government, and to continue to expand on the platform. We know a lot about influenza from our years of work. Our tuberculosis test with QIAGEN, which I mentioned earlier, was launched just a few weeks ago after many years of slog, and we're looking to prove that our capability and our ability to innovate in particular is world leading, and we feel as though we have some runs on the board now to prove that. It's been a wild ride the last couple of years, I will say.
Absolutely, particularly the last two. This is a very caring and sharing community ecosystem here, so I think some of the movement of staff is actually not atypical. I wonder if I could just extend the question a little bit and ask you about the investment pathway. Can you reveal anything about the challenges or the rewards of that particular aspect of the journey?
So we were fortunate in that we have from the early days as a genuine startup with not much more than an idea, we were fortunate to have some wealthy private investors that were prepared to believe in our vision and believe in our team, and supported Illume through those early years. Partnerships which we developed along the way, particularly with QIAGEN, brought in some additional capital to continue to develop products, but also earned us some credibility as people came to understand our technology. We have raised some more money this year, and as you grow, despite the investment from the US government, the enormous rapid scale-up requires enormous amounts of capital, and it's a capital-hungry industry getting to substantial scale quickly. So certainly that wealthy investor base has been crucial in that. We have had some very important investors locally here in Australia which have come and engaged with Illume around further investment. But certainly, we're well over $100 million into the investment program now, and it's a big program to be able to meet the goals which we have set for ourselves. That will continue for us as we look to build out that capability to continue to expand manufacturing. We are heavily automating our production to be able to compete internationally and take our products beyond the US into the Asia Pacific area. We have an authorisation in Canada which we'd like to, an approval, in Canada where we'd like to be commercialising in the near future. And those things are all capital hungry.
Thanks, Sean. Kim, if I can turn to you, Patheon really is a success story. It has its origins in early government investment, and what a great investment that was. It was acquired by Thermo Fisher Scientific in 2017. Thermo Fisher has a global network of facilities in more than 55 locations worldwide, but they selected Brisbane as its only site in Australia. Can you tell us a bit about that transition from early days of Patheon through to acquisition by Thermo Fisher, and maybe something about the skilled and multicultural Queensland labour workforce that you've been able to draw on that's helped Patheon grow?
Sure, thanks, Paul. And I will start by saying we really couldn't have done it without both the co-investment from both state and federal government, who co-invested with our parent company at the time, DSM Biologics, which is Dutch specialty chemicals that were looking for a footprint in Asia. And that's really important because in this business, it can take 7 to 10 years to see that return on investment. It's quite a slow burning industry. And I'd also really like to call out, as Patheon acquired DSM Biologics, which was then subsequently acquired by Thermo Fisher Scientific, that it is a journey really to make those businesses successful. Also, the infrastructure provided by state development, and that includes functions such as Trade Investment Queensland, have been really integral to our success in helping us develop relationships and new business, especially within the Asia Pacific region, but also in the US, and really have helped that growth internationally for us. Because I think we need to recognise there aren't enough clients in Australia. They're still mopped up and hoovered up and taken overseas. And I look forward to the day when my entire clientele is all successful Australian startups and successful commercial companies. As a site, we've kind of grown tenfold in the last 10 years. And the last year we've doubled in size alone, and we have a really good growth trajectory over the next 2 to 3 years, which looks like I may be doubling again. So watch out, Sean, for those staff coming back that we borrowed. It's all friendly, it's okay. So talking about the human capital component, don't underestimate the challenge of finding people with these requisite skill sets in Queensland, in Australia. I think Queensland is set up exceptionally well to provide those graduates and higher education in some of those specialty functions. But for some functions, we still need to look overseas. And one of the challenges we found is the visa categories supporting the biotechnology sector are very limited, which does lead to constraints, and therefore we're caring and sharing between different groups. That said, as a site, we have 36 nationalities represented on site now, and that really represents our global business and customer clientele as well, which is brilliant. And a third of those have higher degrees, so a true, STEM employer in Brisbane. And we give back. So we work very closely with the universities, collaborate. We have more than 12 interns a year, which we hope will support that ongoing development of students as they reach that workforce as well, and support graduate, PhD and postdoc across different universities as well. And that's really about ensuring that we do get those relevantly trained people who can then be industry ready. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, one can't underestimate or overestimate the importance of training of local graduates who can move into these industries. University of Queensland is rated 7th in the world now in the biotechnology space in training, and we're ramping up our capacity to be able to provide for the industries locally. So hopefully that becomes less of a pinch point for you into the years to come. Are you looking for new investment and new customers moving forward? I think you've just told us that there's absolutely no doubt that that is the case. Yeah.
Absolutely. I still have fallow space, can double our capacity that we have at the moment, so bring it on.
Yeah, we heard about TMI from the Treasurer. What's your view on how that will fit into the landscape?
So I think TMI fits that missing piece of the puzzle that we've had in Queensland, and you really can do everything from the start of really excellent research through to that contract manufacturing. And if I don't have enough fingers to count on my hands the number of times we offer sort of free consultancy to say, yeah, that's fantastic, but you're not quite ready. And that TMI is really going to transform the industry in Queensland, because it's going to offer that translational element that's been missing, and it really is missing across the entire of Australia. And delighted to hear that support that takes people from the lab ready for that commercial manufacturing, and those later phase clinic is going to be in Queensland. It's brilliant.
We like to fall back on acronyms. Translational Manufacturing Institute.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
No, that was my fault. I should have introduced it. Fabienne, I was thinking about questions to ask you, and one of our first conversations was around your first experiences having moved from Melbourne. So I'm going to ask you about that. And this is about the broader perspective of the biomedical ecosystem here in Queensland. So you've relatively recently moved to Brisbane from Melbourne. So you're in an ideal position to provide us with your external view of that Brisbane landscape. How have you found it?
So, Paul, thank you. Indeed, I spent 10 years in Victoria before I came to Brisbane. And if I have to compare, it's fair to say Victoria has a very large critical mass of outstanding researchers, but my impression being there is interaction with industry was happening, but it was not as spontaneous as it could be. And it really felt like two worlds living side by side rather than really interacting with each other. The difference when I came to Brisbane was very striking. I think the ecosystem here is very different. I think there's absolutely complete synergy between industry and medical research institutions and universities in particular and institutes. And I think how I can describe that the best is really by saying that the entrepreneurship know-how is greater here, and industry and medical research institutions tend to speak the same language, and that really helps. And I've seen that at QMR Berghofer, where now I am the leader, that our business development team is highly regarded by industry simply because we know how to speak the same language and we know exactly what we're trying to achieve for mutual benefit.
Fantastic. Maybe I can draw out from you now some more specifics around QMR Berghofer Medical Research Institute and its role in the Hurston Health Precinct. Perhaps a little about specific opportunities where investment is being sought at QMRB, but also maybe a bit of an overview of the amazing translational work that's already underway there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I can give you an example that is very striking and really defines the unique know-how here in Queensland, I might want to choose the example of cell therapies. So therapies are really a class of emerging treatments for patients. And so in Queensland, our researchers have been pioneers in developing that class of treatments. In fact, at QMR Berghofer, we have a small to medium scale manufacturing facility for cell therapies, and it turned out to be incredibly strategic for the state. And the reason is at the moment in the world, there is a shortage of facilities to manufacture cell therapies for clinical trials. In fact, more than 80% of the market in cell therapies is in the clinical trial space. And I have to say, with help from the Queensland Government some years ago, we had an upgrade on our facility to really allow phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials, cell therapy manufacturing. I'm very pleased to say that with this investment from Queensland, we were able to attract now up to 65 million of investments back in Queensland. And we'd love to expand even further because there's more and more people banging on our door wanting this particular aspect, and we're really highly regarded in Queensland for our know-how in this space. And so really for us, there's an opportunity here to grow this particular activity and develop this sector further.
That's brilliant. Thanks. If I can move to you now, Sammy. Cook Medical Australia exports 95% of what you manufacture here in Queensland. So why have Cook Medical chosen to grow your business here? I guess the question, I know it started here, but why have you stayed here instead of, say, somewhere in Southeast Asia where maybe things might be slightly less expensive?
Okay, before I answer the question, I just wanted to congratulate Sean on their recent success. And he said they started in 2010. These are the things, they don't happen overnight. They take quite a long time to develop. And the other point I wanted to make, people moving around between businesses is really critical to growing the ecosystem. That's actually what we want to see. Excuse me. While it's hurt us a little bit, we kind of, we also see ourselves as a bit of a training ground because of our size of what we do. And that's a contribution I think we all have to make towards growing that ecosystem. So I think it's a good thing.
Maybe swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things return as well.
Absolutely. I think like Kim said, they'll come back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sammy. I'll return the favour.
About Cook, yes, we do export 95% of what we make. One of the key things is, well, there are a number of things, and obviously making decisions like that can be quite, complicated and convoluted. But the main things, you're right, Paul, the innovation was Australian. Like I said earlier, we have two major product lines, so IVF and stent grafts. Both those are Australian innovations. They were developed here in Australia. When you're doing this sort of thing, one of the key things is to make sure that you are very close to the researchers. If you're commercializing a product, it is much easier to have those people involved in the development process and to make sure that they are ready to help and solve issues as you develop those products. Number two, in both those fields, in Australia, there was quite significant expertise. There was some, big key opinion leaders on the clinical side of things that obviously played a big part in developing those. Just, for interest, our stent graft family of products was actually a competition at one point between a device that was developed here, one that was developed in Europe by clinicians, and one that was developed in the US. And the Australian one overall ended up winning. So it's a good example of Australian innovation and so on. You kind of wonder how fast they would have got to market if there hadn't been a company that was kind of willing to take that risk. Three, we were already established here at the time, and as you all know, developing medical devices or drugs or whatever is quite resource intensive. In many ways, we have the expertise here. We have the connections with all our global companies. We spoke the same language. Our IP was pretty well protected rather than going to Southeast Asia. In those kind of days, so stent grafts were around the late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, there was still, a lot of fear of your IP being taken away, I guess, or duplicated. We also we wanted to establish a significant operation in Southeast Asia, and because we were already here and we had the skills, and for some of the other reasons that I mentioned, Cook made the decision that that would be the best place to set up an operation like that. And it made it easier for us, talking of skills, it made it easier for us to upskill our people using our connections with a lot of the other companies. So a number of reasons.
Yeah. Excellent, thank you. Glenn's been waiting patiently online there. The mask debate was a hot topic in early 2020 and quickly became the mainstay of COVID-19 defence. It should have been a no-brainer from the start from my personal perspective, but I think we now all buy into the reality of masks being a very important line of defence for a respiratory pathogen. Having supplied many millions of face masks to the national stockpile at the height of the pandemic, Aspen Medical made an investment decision to bring that manufacturing to Australia. Why did you choose to do this in Queensland, Glenn?
Thanks. Well, like so many of the previous speakers, we already had a heritage and a history in Queensland. We are the only designers, builders and operators of mobile surgical facilities and other health facilities in Australia, and we designed and built those in Queensland. So we were already in Queensland working up there. In the mask area, we'd been importing medical devices and products into Australia for, almost our entire life since we founded in 2003, in support of all of our operations across the country. So when we were asked to increasingly expand upon the pool of mask capability to bring in, we're accessing them from all around the world. And what we really started to notice was two key issues. One was just amazing quality variability. There was just, people might say they met standards, but a lot of things didn't. There was a lot of substitution going on. And the other was vulnerability of supply. So you put down a deposit, you'd have people on the ground checking out quality and packing, and then you'd find yourself having that disrupted by the local government, particularly in Asia, deciding that they were going to take your supply to use for an outbreak rather than what you had bought. And so we really saw that there was a desperate need for a sovereign capability, and I think this came up in so many areas. And so we started to look around Australia at where we would do that. And we looked at a number of locations, and obviously Queensland was on that short list already because of our presence and our manufacturing capability. And we ended up in Queensland for four key reasons. First of those was workforce. Now, luckily, our people are a different style of workforce than that spoken of earlier. I don't think anyone's poached anyone from Aspen, because our people are out manufacturing at a completely different level than the very, very high level across all of our other panelists today. But we were looking for people who could step straight into manufacturing and production line, helping us with the capability. And in actual fact, everybody that we brought in to manufacturing for the PPE that we do now in Brisbane, all of those people had lost their jobs during COVID. So they'd all been laid off during the COVID layoffs, all out of manufacturing, and we were able to bring them in and give them jobs. But it's all of the other areas around it. We needed to increase our sales workforce. We picked those up in Queensland. We needed to bring up our marketing workforce. We brought those in from Queensland. The other thing that's very critical, and a number of other panellists have touched on it, is the other companies that already existed in Queensland, particularly for us in Brisbane. So we were bringing equipment from overseas to set up, primarily out of China. It did not meet Australian standards. It didn't meet our HSE standards, our electrical standards. And we were having to rewire, make new guards, do stuff. We're having to do that on the fly as we were setting up, and there was a lot of pressure around getting that operational. And we were using local Queensland businesses to manufacture one-off items, rewire, do a whole range of quite technical one-off activities to support what we wanted to create. The next key element was around a distribution network. So we were after somewhere that would be located that allow us to support anywhere around Australia, great air links and great warehousing support, not only for Australia, but we have quite a strong presence in the Pacific as well as internationally. So we saw Brisbane gave us very, very strong links into those areas. And it was interesting listening to Professor Mackay talk about the difference between Victoria and Queensland. In Queensland, we could get noticed when we want to talk about distribution. Trying to fight your way into a distribution network in Sydney and Melbourne can actually be quite challenging because of the size of everybody else there. So Brisbane allowed us to sort of have a voice, which is really critical. It was a great regional location for us. So, you know, very, very good for us to move staff in and out of, particularly with border lockdowns. And finally, the ease of working with government. We were really genuinely impressed compared to other jurisdictions, how flexible the government was, how quick they were to respond, how genuinely easy it was to work with government on getting those things stood up that we needed to create in a really, really short time frame. So you've got to remember, you might be able to buy manufacturing plant out of Asia or out of China and ship it down, but no staff could come. There was no staff allowed to attend. So we had to work out how were we going to get it set up. We worked with a lot of other local companies who were really, really supportive of seeing that we were creating a sovereign capability here in country and helped us with that area. So if I look across, we were already on the ground in manufacturing, so that made a lot of sense. The workforce, diversity of workforce, the distribution network, a great regional location and an ease of working with government. Quite honestly, a very, very clear decision when we racked up against the two other jurisdictions in Australia we looked at. Thanks.
Thanks, Glenn. Great insight into the value of being local here. Can I just remind folks that online you've got an opportunity to ask questions in chat. We may have time for one or two of those. So if you've got a burning one, don't forget to send it through. So what we might do now is just throw open to the panel some generic questions and see what we get back in terms of a response. We're looking to see, you know, what the capacities are for investment into the future. Where's that going to grow the local biomedical industry, and what is our future looking like? Maybe the first one I could ask, what are the particular attributes that you see Queensland providing that are most attractive to investment? We've had a little bit about this already, but maybe bring that down into some focus. And how does your business capitalise on existing infrastructure and expertise to attract investment into Queensland? Maybe up front to you, Kim.
Great, thanks, Paul. So Queensland, I think, is particularly unique in that multiple industries work, along with academia and government, really work collaboratively together. So we joke about sharing human capital, but actually we're all aligned to meet the needs of growth in the state collectively. And I think this ecosystem, working in partnership as opposed to competition, is what really sets Queensland at the forefront for future investment. And we, as I mentioned before, we really have everything, and I think of it as the bench to bed. So we have everything from fantastic research, which really then drives all the way through. We now have the Translational Manufacturing Institute providing that translational space through to manufacturing. And it's not just in biologics, but as we've heard today, across multiple modalities and then into the clinic. So I think we're fully set up for success.
Fantastic. Anyone else want to add into that? Nope. All right, let's move on. It is a highly competitive environment despite that connectivity between all the industries. But what areas do you think Queensland is building in health biomedical capability that the world is noticing and offers significant future potential? I guess this is the crystal ball question. What do you see emerge as emerging opportunities in the future in Queensland? Sammy?
If I can start, I think if you just look at what's been happening in the last, say, 18 months, some of which was driven by COVID, but where the Queensland Government has invested, and if you look at what the outcomes of those things are, so they've invested in companies that have a product that's kind of ready to commercialise. And I know the big picture is made up of so many pieces of the puzzle. That's for a good example is that's created movement within the labour market. People are moving around from one company to another. That is I think that's a really good and positive thing. It kind of just makes you think about where the investment should go. I think in the past it's been maybe focused in one or two areas, but I think it needs to be across the board. If you're talking about well-established companies that are already here, we need to give them some kind of incentive to stay here because they provide you with the training ground for skilled people and so on. I think there's a lot more to do. I think someone kind of mentioned looking for people with the right skills is difficult, and we need to be able to go overseas to bring those in more easily, for example, whether you bring back Australians who want to come back or other nationalities. Ireland is a good example. There are a lot of Irish, medical devices people here, for example. I think you've got to take a holistic view to the whole thing and not just. I think we've been focusing too much on startups and that type of thing. I think we need to kind of spread it around to make sure that the whole system is supported and it can grow.
Yeah, I think the issue is about building a vibrant end-to-end biomedical industry, one with the solid research capacity, the development Absolutely. Through to commercialisation. Absolutely. So building that pipeline so it's actually connected. Yeah. Okay. Maybe that goes to one of the other questions I was going to ask. 2032 is a nice deadline, a nice vision line to look at when the Olympics will be here in Brisbane. The world's eyes are going to be on us. Is this an area that we want to be shining and showing this is an area to come to business in, this is an area to invest in? How do you think we will look in, say, 10 years or so time? Will we have that vibrant industry? We've got that. I think one of the strengths of Queensland is the fact that we've got this entrepreneurship, we've got these biotechs and industries emerging. We have this extraordinary research base. I think it's second to none. Quite incredible level of expertise and that is generating real IP. What we're missing perhaps is that ability. TMI and investments like those will help drive this to some degree. But what we're missing is that connection from early to late. Do you see us being in that place in 10 years' time?
Personally, I think 10 years is too short, and I think for me, it's more of a 20, 30-year horizon to achieve the full vision. But I think we can make some really good progress in the next 10 years if we start, if we start now and really look holistically, and as you said earlier, Paul, look at the whole supply chain, not just pockets of it. We need to connect everything together. And if we can show that we've provided that connectivity by 2032 and we're starting to see some output, it takes time. Like, these things are very lengthy, we're starting to see some output. I think that would be a really good thing to showcase. And as you say, I agree. It's an amazing opportunity because the world's eyes will be on us. So we kind of, need to think about how we use that opportunity as well.
Yeah, it's worth setting the challenging goal, perhaps. And I think a lot of what you've just said is, if we allow these things to organically grow, will happen that way. But there's another way of doing this, and that is specific targeted investment. And I think that's...
you've got to be intentional about these things.
Yep. Okay. I think we're coming close to the end. I don't have any moderated questions that have come through to me, so I might just finish off with, it's been a great conversation. Thank you very much to all the panellists. And I have warned them about this question up front, and that is their parting commentary about two issues. What's the one thing we do exceptionally well in Queensland in the health and biomedical sector? And what is one thing we could do better to capture more overseas interest and investment? And I guess that goes somewhat to building this connectivity into the future. Sean, might start with you.
It's been terrific hearing the conversation, and I agree that 10 years might be a little bit too short to build these industries, really. One thing that we do very well is the science. I think we really have world-class science at the various institutions throughout Queensland, and that is, in my view, the foundation. I think if you don't have that world-class science, having the pieces of the industry which follow is hard to see. So I think the science is the starting point, but the ultimate goal is international businesses which lead their space. And that is not just the transferring into products and manufacturing those products and scaling those products up to a global market, but then that's actually commercialising them, and through all of that, staying in Australia. So I think it's the ability to develop sales, commercialisation capability on an international level while still keeping a head office in Australia, Queensland in particular, which would be the thing that we don't do so well yet. Would be my perspective.
Agreed. Kim?
Thanks.
Exceptionally well, and what we could do better.
Yep. So I think I've mentioned already we're absolutely brilliant at collaborating across industry, academia and government. So we need to keep that up. In terms of the one thing I think we could do better, I'd love to see the investment in more startups in Queensland so we can keep them here and really leverage and grow that sovereign manufacturing in Australia. And I think we need to market just how good we are better, more effectively than we do today.
Agreed. Fabienne, I'm going to take the liberty of, I've got two questions in here, and there's one of them that I just would like to target to you, putting you on the spot, but from Goslick Shepherd's, do you think we are asking too much of investors, going earlier that is, as the federal funding of research gets squeezed? How can we share in the risk of earlier stage investing? And I guess QGen and others fall to some degree into this.
I think we have to remember, it's been said before, that for those of us who travel the world and go to conferences, the quality of the discoveries in Brisbane in particular, in Queensland, in Australia for that matter, is world class. We're leading the world with some of the really most important discoveries in this world. I think the ambition, if I want to be really short here, is to look at what has been done in other countries. So take Denmark, smaller population than Australia, but they've been capable of translating that brilliance in biomedical research into a vibrant pharmaceutical industry. I think the ambition for Australia, and certainly for Queensland, is for us to achieve that. And I think the investment is there. We are ready. We have, manufacture-ready discoveries. They're unique. They're going to transform medicine. And I think we need to be prepared to make that investment to grow that pharmaceutical industry here in Queensland.
Yeah, I agree. I think I opened up with comments about my experiences over this last year and the power of partnerships. I think into the future, we really need to be focusing on public-private partnerships and how they can actually drive these local industries. We're sitting here ready to provide a fully fledged economy out of the biomedical space, and it requires investment. Sammy, Do you have a...
Yeah, look, I'd agree. I think the research side of things is world class. That's something that definitely stands out. From a weakness point of view, I think a number of people have brought up the skills base in particular areas. So it's a combination of commercialisation and expertise in particular areas. One thing I'd really like to see, I think we need to take a bit more risk. We have a lot of smart people here, and we underestimate, I think, the ability of some of our own people, even though they don't have the expertise in certain areas. We're successful at a number of other things, business and commercialisation of other types of products. I think that in this field we need to take a bit of risk. You'll be surprised how quickly people learn and pick up. It's like I said, it's a big puzzle. There are all sorts of pieces to it. This would be one small piece. But I think you have to kind of invest in all of them, and hopefully that you will hit, like a 70-80% success rate. They're not all going to be successful. So
it's all about risk management, isn't it?
Yep.
And the rewards will come. Yep. Glenn, do you have anything final to say? We've only got a few minutes now.
Yeah, no, look, and I do appreciate it. I'm not going to touch on the positives that have already been brought up. I support them. I will, though, I think, touch on how government interacts. I think the Queensland Government's ability to identify opportunities and move quickly is really powerful and understated. I see it in other jurisdictions where they get themselves into paralysis through analysis and end up not making any decision because they can't work out which one to make. And I think if the bulk of the decisions are good, I think we to what Sammy's point, not just industry but government has to take some risk, and we should support them, and we should be willing to say, that was a good try but didn't quite get the mark, but the other three did. So I think that's a real strength of government, and I would only reinforce that. On the what could we do better? Queensland is an incredibly diverse location, and we spoke about very briefly at the start around health outcomes. There's been a lot around manufacturing and research, but Queensland covers rural, remote, Indigenous, far north, tropical, metropolitan areas. We've got the opportunity to shape the fashion of healthcare and how it will be delivered to not only our populations but populations around the world. And how we do telehealth, how we augment our patients with new medical devices, how we augment our staff in the delivery of those are going to be really, really critical in the future. I think we could do more to utilise the geography that Queensland lives in. And the final point I'll pick up is Queensland's made some great decisions, and you've heard of all of those today. And I think it has a leadership position now within the other jurisdictions in the country to say, what, let's not have Queensland fight New South Wales or Victoria. Let's get Australia to bind together and work out how do we compete against Asia or America or Europe. And if we've got it in Queensland, that's good. Let's not make three other facilities around the country and try and compete against each other. And I think Queensland's in a very unique position to lead that discussion with the other jurisdictions to the betterment not only of business in Queensland, but to the betterment of Australia. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Glenn. We have to wrap up now, but I might just leave with one summary point then, that the take-home message for me, and it builds on what Glenn has just said, perhaps we should be using the Queensland model, because clearly the Queensland model is about cooperation, particularly in industry. And I think that is possibly the underlying feeder for future progress and developing that vibrant economy. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you to all of the panellists for taking time to join us today.
Thank you, Professor Young, and to all our panellists for sharing your thoughts, advice and insights. Thank you also to our audience for your questions, which streamed in towards the end there. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, we were not able to answer all of the questions. However, we will ensure that the panellists have access to your questions for follow-up. Moving on now, our next session is a series of 3 short case studies of successful Queensland companies and organisations, all sharing why Queensland is the place to invest in the health sector. First, we have Dr. Dean Moss, Chief Executive Officer of UniQuest. UniQuest is Australia's leading technology transfer company whose innovation portfolio includes Australia's first blockbuster vaccine, Gardasil, UQ's superconductor technology, which is used in most of the world's MRI machines, and in 2015, UniQuest's spin-out Spinifex Pharmaceuticals secured Australia's largest ever biotechnology acquisition. Then we will hear from Mr. Maurice Ben-Maire, President, South Pacific of Stryker. Stryker is a global medical technology company who has recently announced Queensland as the home of their new R&D lab. The lab will build on existing partnerships with hospitals, researchers, universities and local governments to drive the transformation of research into viable, commercially available precision medical device technology. And finally, you will hear from founder and CEO of Where Optimo, Professor Mark Kendall, whom I had the pleasure of meeting recently. Where Optimo have developed life-saving medical technology that will improve the care of seriously ill patients. The new technology is a wearable sticker-like sensor that's inexpensive, painless, and gives fast and accurate results in real time. It's exciting that such a revolutionary medical technology will be manufactured and distributed globally from Queensland. For example, these sensors will be able to detect dehydration while people are on the job or the elderly. The sensors can also help with the early detection of heart attacks and cardiovascular disease, which is responsible for 20 million deaths per year. Professor Kendall has been granted over 140 patents, which has generated $2 billion of combined economic value. Now to our case studies.
Queensland offers to the world our research-intensive universities that are partnered with state-of-the-art clinical research facilities in our adjacent hospitals. Together, we're approaching some of the most challenging areas of unmet clinical need with a very accessible patient population. Together, the Queensland universities represent a pipeline of over $700 million worth of research. That research is leading edge, and commercialisation companies attached to each of the universities, like UniQuest at the University of Queensland, commercialise a rich pipeline of investable opportunities from those universities. Over the next 12 months, we have on offer a range of projects that span the preclinical to clinical interface. We have areas of interest in both oncology and in neuroscience, in infectious disease and in pain, and many emerging and challenging areas of biomedical science. Given the exciting range of projects on offer as investable opportunities from our Queensland universities, our rich pipeline of preclinical to clinical projects offers investors a compelling opportunity to invest with patient capital over the short to medium to long term. We have projects spanning that interface. We have given rise to 2 of the largest acquisitions of startup assets in this country, with the acquisition of Spinifex Pharmaceuticals and Inflazome, so there's a proven track record. What we want is investors with not just the necessary capital, but the networks to expand those opportunities to get clinical success.
So Stryker is a global medtech company based out of the US, but has a global presence in most developed markets. We have a leadership position in orthopedics, in medical surgical equipment, and also in neurotechnology. And of late, we've seen great success in our robotics program as well. So we found our experience with the Queensland Government great. We found them to be very collaborative, very solutions focused, and very proactive. And really, that's played a key part in us choosing Queensland to be the home of our R&D centre. We chose Queensland to be the home of our R&D centre for several reasons. Firstly, the university infrastructure in Brisbane, particularly with UQ and QUT, is very strong, particularly in the fields of robotics and medical technology that we're interested in. Also, the clinicians and hospital networks, particularly in the Metro North area, proved to be very, very good partners for us to establish this hub. And then as well, the Queensland Government were very proactive and very solutions focused in working with us to come up with a partnership that worked for both parties. So all of those things combined really made Queensland the perfect location for this hub. So the Queensland Government played a key role in helping us bring the key stakeholders together, the institutions, the universities, the health network, and bringing them all together as one collaborative entity. Obviously very helpful when it came to establishing this hub. Queensland Government also provided us with a grant or an establishment grant to help us set up this hub. And these things in combination really made the decision quite easy to locate our hub in Queensland, and made a huge difference to the project not only being in Queensland, but also the project being able to kick off.
So Optimo is a Brisbane-based company. We make wearable devices for precision medicine. The commercial successes of Optimo are taking forward our technology in many different areas, including our micro-wearable sensor. Optimo is a global business. We could be set up anywhere, and there's opportunities to do the company in many different locations. But I'm based here in Brisbane. I've been here for 16 years, first as a Smart State Senior Fellow and in many other capacities. The work I've done has generated many jobs for Queenslanders, and I'm passionate about the go forward for Queenslanders as well. So I want to add value globally, but also add value here in Queensland. Optimo has received tremendous support from the Queensland Government. So from our foundation based here in Brisbane, they have backed us in many different ways. We've won a EGSCP significant grant to allow us to stand up a facility based here in Brisbane to make up to 20 million micro-wearables per year end-to-end production here in Queensland. But that's not the end of it. We've had many years of support from the Queensland Government, dating right back to 2006 when I first arrived back in Queensland from Oxford with a Smart State Senior Fellowship.
Dean Morris and Mark make compelling cases for why Queensland. Thank you, gentlemen. We now move on to a message from the Honourable Yvette Darth, Minister for Health and Ambulance Services, who will discuss lessons we have learnt from the COVID-19 pandemic and what they mean for industry in Queensland.
Before I begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners on whose land we meet today and their elders past, present and future. Over the past 2 years, COVID-19 has shown us how resilient and strong Queensland is. Our state has had relatively low case numbers, and in times of heightened risk, Queenslanders have followed the health advice. Although some short lockdowns have occurred since COVID-19 arrived on our doorstep, Queensland businesses have largely been able to operate business as usual. Our efforts during this time have helped to manage the global pandemic, keeping Queenslanders safe and keeping the economy going. The pandemic has highlighted our state's outstanding scientific research capabilities in universities, research institutions and health and biomedical companies. In early 2020, Professor Paul Young and his team at the University of Queensland attracted worldwide attention with the UQ COVID-19 vaccine candidate. To this day, outstanding work is continuing to deliver version 2.0. Professor John Fraser, a preeminent specialist at the Prince Charles Hospital and University of Queensland, gained worldwide exposure for the global study of ICU data to guide COVID-19 treatments. Queensland companies have also joined the global pandemic response and have helped to boost the state's ability to respond to COVID-19 as well as prepare for future pandemics. Our response to COVID-19 in Queensland is from the in-depth and mostly behind-the-scenes work. A lot of combined efforts from multiple parties have gone into keeping Queenslanders safe. Throughout the pandemic, and as we could expect, there have been some learnings that have needed attention. Government and industry bodies have worked closely throughout this time to create the Essential Goods and Supply Chain program. This program is playing a vital role in Queensland's economic recovery strategy and response to COVID-19. It contributed to re-engineering manufacturing processes so that Queensland could produce masks and personal protective equipment locally. This meant Queensland no longer had to wait long periods of time for stock of critical equipment and could continue supporting the community and delivering care to Queenslanders. Similarly, companies throughout the state have taken innovative leaps to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes developing rapid COVID-19 test kits and robotics and advanced manufacturing technologies to respond to the impacts of COVID-19 and the production of PPE. This positions Queensland to offer investors world-leading research, cutting-edge scientific discoveries and innovative design and development. Queensland is highly advanced in manufacturing and we can offer fast and responsive solutions to almost any challenge. We look forward to investors coming to Queensland to discover the wealth of opportunities we have in our state. The Palaszczuk government stands ready to work with you on opportunities right for your business. This is thanks to the strong ties government departments have built with industry and researchers to grow our health and biomedical sector. I encourage you to explore the opportunities available to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the conclusion of the forum. The Honourable Megan Scanlon MP, Minister for the Environment and the Great Barrier Reef and Minister for Science and Youth Affairs, has joined us remotely today from the Gold Coast and will provide some remarks on what we have listened to today. Welcome, Minister Scanlon.
Thanks, Therese, and Jingari from the Gold Coast. It's great to be with you all today, and can I acknowledge all of the forum speakers and participants today. You've all no doubt heard a lot about, obviously, the strength of the health sector in Queensland and the opportunities to invest in our success in this state. And of course, as I'm sure you've heard from both the Treasurer, the Deputy Premier and the Minister for Health, the Queensland Government is we absolutely recognise that to deliver new health products and services and to build a competitive economy, we need to have that national and global partnership and investment. And so as Queensland Science Minister, I've had the opportunity to meet and support some of our world-leading researchers in this state, tackling a lot of the global challenges, things like tropical disease, cancer, dementia, as well as the innovative use of technology, including imaging to improve health and health services and clinical treatment. And just yesterday, I was at UQ seeing some of the incredible work of some of these researchers, and I was just listening before to Professor Paul Young in the forum panel session and reflecting on that visit to the vaccine team and how impressive some of these, really young and highly skilled team members really are. And then when you reflect on the fact that over sort of a 5-year period from 2016 to 2020, the University of Queensland has produced nearly 59,000 research publications in medical and health science. We have an incredible team in this state. In fact, around 3 of Queensland's 8 statutory universities were ranked in the top 50 in the world by the Times Higher Education Young University rankings in 2021. So we have so much incredible talent here. And over the last 2 decades, we've had multi-billion-dollar investments by the Queensland Government and our partners that really have given our state a leading research institutes, new collaborative precincts and breakthrough technologies, and successfully taken to market. And I understand the Deputy Premier talked this morning about the Vaxxus needle-free nanopatch technology that has been developed and is being manufactured right here in Brisbane with funding from both international investors and the Queensland Government, and it's going towards a new local production facility. So there's amazing work happening right now, and Queensland really does have a genuine cluster of health research and competitive companies that are helping the state transition to a really knowledge-intensive economy. We operate an extensive clinical trial network with a rapid and pragmatic regulatory pathway for clinical trials, saving you ideally time and delivering good governance and offering also cultural diversity. And so hopefully today has given you just a bit of a snapshot of the pipeline of investment opportunities in health research and technology that Queensland offers. We, of course, want to work with you to help accelerate their development and commercialisation. Here in Queensland, we're continuing to enhance that capability through a number of programs that support science and industry collaboration. I'm sure the Deputy Premier talked about our $3 billion Queensland Jobs Fund, and as would the Treasurer have, I won't go through all of the different funds, but there's so much opportunity out there, and I think it really highlights that our government is committed to partnering with investors, the research community, and businesses to build a globally competitive health and biomedical industry, really to drive economic opportunities here and secure jobs that deliver a more prosperous state. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time today. We really look forward to working with you, and thanks so much to Therese for hosting this event. I hope it's been valuable for everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister Scanlon. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to hand over to our host for today, the Honourable Cameron Dick, the Treasurer of Queensland and the Minister for Trade and Investment, who joined us in the last half hour. The Treasurer will make some final comments and give a vote of thanks to conclude our proceedings. Before I do, I wanted to thank you for having me as your Master of Ceremonies today, and to let you know that a follow-up email will go out to all attendees with details on how you can get more information or ask any further questions on anything we've spoken about today. Thank you and welcome, Treasurer.
Well, thanks very much, Charisse. G'day to everyone who joins us here in 1 William Street and everybody joining us online. What a great afternoon. I'm so sorry I couldn't get the whole session. We were out with the Premier launching the Queensland Resource Industry Development Plan, another future-focused plan for our resources industry, but I've just been so taken by everything I've heard this afternoon, particularly the panel. And there's a few comments I'd like to make, maybe some observations before I thank everyone who brought this afternoon together. I think as you've heard from today, Queensland really is the place to be, and now is our moment. This is our moment for our state, having weathered the pandemic, having come through the pandemic with one of the best health responses in the world, and we should acknowledge that. We are now so well positioned to take that health response and turn that into an economic principally an economic response to that, which is, again, domestically leading the country, but convert that into something special for our companies on the world stage. And that's what this afternoon has been about. We've had a record number of attendees for this session today, which I'm so pleased about. And it was great to hear from some of our brilliant business leaders. I'm always so inspired when I hear what Queenslanders have done, what they have achieved and what they aspire to. And that was the panel as well as our presenters with their video presentations today. I hope Glenn Keys is still on the line, because I understood he said today he's opening his regional headquarters in Brisbane, so I'm taking that as a big win out of the forum today already. Well, already we've got an investment decision coming Queensland's way, but Glenn and the other panel members, I think, highlighted some of the special things that we offer in Queensland that have helped them achieve what they hope to achieve as companies and also medical research leaders. And those words about being pragmatic, practical, the collaborative approach we take through government, solutions focused, I think so important. We want to help you get from A to B as quickly as possible, and we want to make sure that the services we provide as a government help you do that and help you achieve that. We also, I suppose, want to leverage off what makes Queensland special, and that's our invention, our innovation, our ingenuity, and also our integrity. And those things, I think, have shone during COVID. I want to particularly acknowledge Professor Paul Young and the work that he did with his team at the University of Queensland. And we talk about the permission to fail. That team did an incredible amount of work, and I don't regard it as a failure. I regard it as us being with the rest of the world, dealing with the most significant health challenges of our lifetime, perhaps one of the most significant health challenges of the last century, and being absolutely at the vanguard and the forefront. And it was our state and our researchers and our research institutions who in fact cracked the problem there was an associated or a collateral issue that came from that, but we solved that problem. And if that had been the only vaccine in the world that had worked, we would have all been using a vaccine that had been developed in Queensland. And this is the story about the permission to fail that we talked about. We are also risk averse. That is part of our culture, I think. It's part of our challenge, how we give ourselves permission to fail, because if you engage in something that's noble and honourable, you never fail. And so I want to add my thanks to many people who've thanked Paul and his team out there as an example of what we can do in short periods of time to crack one of the biggest problems of our time. So thanks, Paul, and thanks for your contribution today. And everyone on this panel here have done amazing things for Queensland. And I know Sean's got a great vision for what his company can do, and we've been so pleased to help Sean with his vision of what he can achieve. I also wanted to say this. I have the unique opportunity and the great honour of being the Trade Minister now. And that allows me with the TIQ team, and I want to particularly acknowledge the TIQ team. We've got, of the 238 attendees today and the 112 companies, we've got 8 of our Trade and Investment Commissioners on the line. So Julia Harries, who leads our team in Hong Kong and Macau, Takadachi, who's been our long-standing champion for Queensland in Japan, Julianne Nichols, who leads our team in China, a big team in China. She's currently in Queensland. Vicky Forrest from North America, Patrick Haffenstein from Taiwan, Tom Calder leading our ASEAN team, Ryan Freer in Korea, and Abhinav Bhatia in India, all on the line joining us. Now, I don't know what time it is around the world, but it's all not 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30 in the afternoon. So wherever you are, I want to thank those trade commissioners because I have that honour of helping lead that team. And I want you to know that we are your gateway now. We are the bridge, if you're a Queensland company, from Queensland to the world. And all of those TIQ staff members, led by our commissioners, we are ready to work for you. And I think those of you who know me or followed my career, when I was the Health Minister, I put a strong focus on the great knowledge and knowledge-based skill we had, the research capability we had in Queensland, to develop a pathway for companies through our Health Innovation Investment and Research Office, which I established in Queensland Health, and we've got members of those team from Queensland Health here today. I developed a Health Export and Investment Advisory Council. So in the health space, I'm a believer. You don't have to convince me. But now I have those added responsibilities as Minister for Investment and Minister for Trade, which I now want to use to empower Queensland companies, whether it be attracting investment here to support your growth or building markets for you, building customers, building trade and export opportunities. That's what the Trade and Investment team offers and what I can help you achieve as Trade Minister. In conclusion, I did want to thank everyone who brought this important investor forum together. We've been so excited by the engagement we've had from business and industry. And in this space, I know we've got a lot of research institutions and our university and higher education leaders online as well. We're just so pleased that so many of you have taken the time to join us. I want to particularly thank the commercial and investment team in Queensland Treasury, led by Deputy Under-Treasurer Michael Carey. I want to thank the Trade and Investment team, the TIQ team, who are doing so much work and haven't skipped a beat really during the whole pandemic, even though many of them have been locked down for much longer periods than not just people in Queensland, but people in Australia. I want to thank them, and I want to also acknowledge my ministerial colleagues who participated today. This is a very, I think, important thing that we've had the Deputy Premier, the Health Minister, the Minister for Science, and myself all showing our commitment to what you want to achieve. So thanks again, everyone. Thanks for your work in pulling this together. I know it's not done overnight. It takes some time to get these investor forums together, and I think it's been very successful this afternoon. We started the session today by asking the question, why Queensland? I think the question for you now is why not? And so let's work together to take some of the greatest commercial, business, research minds to take it from bench to bedside and to the boardroom to create opportunities for Queenslanders wherever they might live in our state. So thanks again and look forward to working with you.